So, it comes to no surprise you guys click on this video thanks to the title and thumbnail. Sparkle being better than Bronya, and I stand by it. Like, of course, it's not a full-on power creep, but there are multiple reasons why I believe that I think that Sparkle is just better than Bronya in a lot of scenarios. So, for today's video, I'm gonna be discussing her kit, best relics, some analysis, LC options, best teammates, best team comps. Should you pull for her or should you not follow her banner? And my reasons to believe why Sparkle is better than Bronya. Sparkle is also coming out, by the way, in less than a week, around 5 days as of the making of this video, so there's that to consider. So, let's talk about Sparkle. She's a quantum unit that follows the path of harmony, so basically she mega buffs allies. Her kit functions similarly to Bronya but has more SP. If I were to describe Sparkle to the closest thing that we have, it would be Bronya and also Jing1's Lycone, right? So for Jing1's Lycone, Sparkle is basically Jing1's signature Lycone but better, right? Both of them are extremely similar. They provide damage percentage, attack, crit damage, but Sparkle provides much more, such as, better scaling with her crit damage and also an advanced forward. So basically, Jing once before done but turned into a unit. She's great for mono quantum and for any DPS that wants to abuse their skill or out of turn DPS. So that's basically the gist of her kit, and without further ado, let's learn exact details. Disclaimer, by the way, all the skills I've been mentioning here will be all at level 10 for all those sweaty nerds out there. So her basic attack is a single target attack. It's just a normal basic attack that you'd find in any other units. It deals quantum damage equal to 100% of Sparkle's attack to a single target enemy. You wouldn't be using this no matter what. I mean, there may be niche scenarios where you would want to use it, but most of the time, you just want to abuse Sparkle's skill. So for a skill, right, it's a support skill. It increases the crit damage of a single target ally by 24% or more of Sparkle's crit damage plus 45% lasting for one turn, okay? Keynote one turn. And at the same time, advances forward this ally's action by 50%. So when Sparkle uses this ability on herself, it's similar to Bronya. The action advance effect will not be triggering, right? It'll be useless. So the advance forward of 50%, I'll just say it will become 99% if you build your Sparkle right, such as 161 speed as usual, or you can go for 150 plus speed, including Dance 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 Lycone. So now let's move on to her talent, right? So while Sparkle is on the battlefield, additionally increase the max number of skill points by 2 whenever an ally consumes 1 skill point, right? All allies' damage dealt increases by 6%. This effect will be lasting for 2 turns and can stack up to 3 times. So if you use 3 skill points, this will be instantly 18% damage increase. Moving on will be her ultimate, which recovers 4 skill points for the team and grants all allies Cypher, right? So for all allies with Cypher, each stack of the damage boost effect provided by Sparkle's talent, which is usually the 6%, will additionally increase by 10%, lasting for 2 turns. So in total, you get 30% damage boost from Sparkle's ultimate for 2 turns, and with the 18%, it will equal to 48% damage. Now moving on is her technique. Her technique grants all allies misdirect for 20 seconds. Characters with misdirect will not be detected by enemies, and entering battle in the misdirect state recovers 3 skill points for the team. So I believe if you're gonna be playing in MOC, right, you're gonna start off with 6 or 7 skill points at the start of the game, which is very huge for any unit that would love, not just any unit, but for any team comp that just wants to spam their skills such as Ting Yun, Wowo, Danang Il, QQ. So moving on would be her major traces. The first trace is called Nocturne. It increases all allies' attack by 15%. When there are 1, 2, or 3 quantum type allies in the team, including Sparkle, right? It will increase quantum type allies' attack by 5%, 15%, and 30% respectively. So if you have like 3 quantum units in the team, you automatically give 30% to 45% attack to all those units. So, and attack percentage is very important for units like Sway and Sealy who already has so much damage percentage in their kit. Sure, you can run attack percentage boots, but even if you are reaching diminishing returns at that point, you're still gaining buffs. So it's still pretty good. Moving on is Artificial Flower, her second major trace. This is a big one. The crit damage boost effect provided by the skill will be extended until the start of the target's next turn. So what this means, right, is any out of turn ultimates will still be affected by the crit damage boost. Sometimes there will be scenarios where Bronya will buff the unit, right? And then your unit will attack, but you can't reach that energy, and you still want to use that ult, but now you don't have Bronya's buffs. Whereas for Sparkles, right, you can still the crit damage boost is still retained from her skill. This will also affect every other units and very important for units such as Jingyuan, right? Such as his Lightning Lord. So it's basically you're playing like E6 Bronya, but better. So there's that. Her third major trace is Almanac. When using basic attack, you additionally regenerate 10 energy. So this is quite useful if you're really interested in, just QL features at bare minimum. I don't see really much good use for this, except maybe in like very niche scenarios, right? So there's that. As for other total stats bonus value, it's similar to Bronia's, right? You exactly get 24% crit damage. You get 10% effect rest, which is good for accomplishing the broken kill status necessary to grant every ally 10% crit damage, including for herself. And she gets defensive stats such as 28% HP. So nearly exactly the same as Bronya. I believe Bronya has like around some 12 or 22% that win damage boost, which is arguably useless, right? So now we're moving on to Sparkle's preferred relics, but before I discuss about her relics, right? Sparkle is quite easy to build. She would want speed, crit damage, and effect rest if you're really searching for the broken kills requirements to get 10% crit damage for everybody else. So as you can see from here, from my Bronya, she's keeping all of my Sparkle's relic pieces, but I do have a reserve, relic pieces for Bronya herself. So as you can see from here, she has 152 speed. I believe Sparkle has 2 more speed than Bronya, or around 1 more speed. So Sparkle speed would be 154, and right now I'm achieving like an effect res of 43.7%. So I achieve like broken kills effect, right? So this will turn into 212 crit damage, and then let's say I pull for Fush 1, I'm gonna get 222 crit damage, which is ideally already good enough. An endgame build for Sparkle would want, let's say, 160.1 speed and around like 200 crit damage bare minimum, right? And now you would also want like what 30% effect res, and your other substats can go to HP defense, but it doesn't matter, especially if you pull for a broken unit like Fush 1, because Sparkle's never gonna die. So when it comes to her relic sets, right, her most desired one is the messenger traversing hacker space, at least bare minimum. You don't really care too much about how do I say this? Substats will matter far more than getting the 4-piece effects most of the time. But just the greatest one will be her 4-piece if you can really achieve good speed and crit damage from the 4-piece effect of messenger traversing hacker space. Then it's all the better, right? But for me, I just go with a 2-piece and just random off pieces, right? So I do get this one, which all lands into speed and crit damage, which is really insane. Sure, I'm not gonna. I sadly don't get like a 2-piece or 4-piece effect of messenger hacker space, but that's all good. What matters more are the substats 100%. This one you can probably aim for 2-piece so you can increase the survivability of Sparkle. But if you're gonna pull for Fush 1, you don't really have to care too much about the survivability of your supports, right? So this one it lands speed and into crit damage, which is extremely good. This one lands some of it into defense and effect rest. Sadly, it didn't land into speed, but that's perfectly fine. We have a good crit damage piece right here. And we got an insane speed boots here. Sadly, it went into attack and break effect, which are dead stats no matter what. It would have been nice if if at least this 2 went into the defense, right? Because at least for my Sparkle, right, I plan to just never basic attack with her. And we can see her like a crit damage of 22%, which is really insane. So her planner sets, her most important will be either Broken Kill or Penacony, right? Penacony if you're planning to go mono quantum. Because no matter what, it doesn't matter the regeneration rate of 5%, right? What matters here is the 10% damage increase for basically your mono quantum allies. For this one, it will be 10% crit damage for both your DPS and for Sparkle, right? And I have a good one here. It has 11% crit damage. I could farm for more or a better one, but I wouldn't, right? So here I got like at bare minimum, she should also have like an ER rope, by the way. ER rope is really good for her to achieve a 3-turn ult. So her ult cost, by the way, is 110, so you don't have to worry about light cone option. So basically, that's it for Sparkle's relics. Achieve at least, at bare minimum, if you have Dance Dance Dance, at least achieve 150 plus speed. Some others have said 147 plus speed, and with Dance Dance Dance, right? You can get 3 turns in one cycle and just get around like 200 or even 180 crit damage for your end game, right? So that's it for Sparkle's relic pieces. We're now gonna move on to her light cone options. So as I mentioned before, Sparkle has a very short ultimate cost of 110. At that point, you just run an ER rope and you're gonna achieve 3 turn ults no matter what, right? So basically, light cones such as Coggers, Smashing Cogs, which grants like 8 energy. It would be possible to 2-turn ults with this one, but highly not recommended because it requires, being hit like quite a lot of times. So I don't recommend it. The other options are quite insane, the 4-star options. The only one that's worse for Sparkle would be Memories of the Past, since, your Sparkle would want to keep skilling every turn, right? So one of the worst light cones for her. Her good ones would be But the Battle Isn't Over. Maybe the energy regeneration rate might be good, but I don't think so. Maybe the skill point would be useful, but if you're running Sparkle, with or without this Lycone, you're still gonna be, comfortable in not running out of skill points no matter what. Maybe this is safe, but most of the time if you're running Sparkle, or basically any good team comp should be able to clear a Memory of Chaos in less than like 4 cycles for you to ever have a problem with skill points, right? And with good team comp. So the best part here is about the deals that 30% more damage for 1 turn. If you, as I mentioned before, Sparkle will always be married to your DPS, right? If you achieve like 150 plus speed and your DPS is like attack boots, you don't have to worry about speed boots at all for your DPS. That advance forward of 50% will always turn into a 100% no matter what. So, but the battle isn't over is a good light cone for Sparkle. This one is kinda mid. You're never gonna use the break effect part here. Sure, you can achieve like what perma 24% damage buff for 3 turns and maybe achieve like 20 energy. So I could see some use for this, but I'll just say it, for Sparkle, you don't really need like, or just in general for Harmony units, you don't really care too much about their signature Lycone or basically 5-star Lycones, because the best ones are basically the 4 stars, right? I wouldn't say they're the best ones, but the 4-star options are extremely good, right? Another good Lycone would be Dance Dance Dance. If you can achieve a 160 speed Sparkle because speed substat is rare, then just go for Dance Dance Dance, right? The other free-to-play option, if you don't have a, Bronya signature Lycone, is Past and Future. What's good about this one is that it's, 2% more damage increase. It may not mean much, but, damage, a little bit more damage can, be a game changer for many things, right? It still is important. So moving on is Carve the Moon, Weave the Clouds. I don't feel like this Lycone is any good because of the RNG effect. Sure, you can get like energy regeneration rate, but for most of the time, if you're building a Sparkle team comp, you don't really care too much about ER unless of course you're reaching a specific threshold, right? Like imagine if you achieve, let's say, 160.1 speed with Kafka, right? There's like speed thresholds. Any more speed than that, it should reach a threshold, or else it's gonna be worthless, right? So what matters more is not about, speed exactly, but more if you can reach that speed threshold. So it's similar to energy regeneration rate, right? You can have like what one plus energy regen, but if it does not contribute to a achieving another ult in like less than, let's say, like 6 cycles, then it wouldn't matter that much, right? The best part about this one is only for the attack percentage or the crit damage increase. So not really the most consistent of all the 4-star Lycone options, but at least it's still usable, right? So moving on is Chorus, it's attack percentage of 8%, so I guess with Sparkle you can achieve like what, 15 plus 8, around 23% attack existing, but there are 4-star Lycone options that exist. Oh wait, It's lagging all of a sudden, so let's just wait. But yeah, chorus, there's better options out there, and you know, if you've been playing this game for long, you're not gonna use this icon. You just go for Dance Dance Dance, Past and Future, Planetary Rendezvous for your Mono Quantum. That's about it. There's just better 4-star icon options. Moving on is Dreamville Adventure. It's damage percentage by 20%, but you know, it's for a certain ability type, right? So Sparkle will keep spamming her skill. So units that will keep spamming their skills, such as Sealy, this might be pretty good, but you know, it's pretty niche. It's like a worse version of what you call this, Planetary Rendezvous. And you know, if you're using this on Jingwan, right? If you're using this on your Sparkle, your Jingwan, your Topaz, their follow-up attacks won't matter because you know it's not an attack skill or ultimate. Those summonable entities will be follow-up attack damage, which Sparkle doesn't have, sadly. So this doesn't work at all. And of course, I forgot to mention, but her best install will always be her signature light cone. It provides crit rate, it provides crit damage for herself and for allies, so it's basically a huge ass stat stick. So I wouldn't. I mean, if you really like Sparkle's character, go ahead, pull for it. It's gonna be really easing on your substats no matter what. You know, to achieve that 100% crit rate threshold or a good, like, you know, crit rate, crit damage threshold, right? So there is that for Sparkle. But you know, I'm just saying that most of the time it's better if you're pulling for a DPS signature like cone, except for Jingwon's case, right? There's a YouTuber by the name of Yellov. He says that for Jingwon, his signature light cone is overrated, and instead it's better to just pull for Sparkle's signature light cone because it's far more unique, such as 10% crit rate and that stuff, right? So, you know, if you're pulling for Sparkle for Jingwon, I would say pull not for Jingwon's signature Lycon, but instead pull for Sparkle, unless of course there's a counter argument that there might be a future unit that, you know, Jingwon wants other than Sparkle, so you know, there's that. So that's it for all the signature Lycons, right? Let's talk about the unit synergies. So for most of the unit synergies, I'll be discussing the most blatant and obvious one. It'll be Danhang Il and QQ. They are usually the most shoehorned units for Sparkle since they both utilize a lot of skill points. With Sparkle, their ceiling is far more consistent and allows, you know, your Dill or Dragon Hong to possibly 3 enhanced basic attack in like the first cycle, which is extremely insane, right? And for QQ, you just get more SP, so if you're unlucky, you know, you're definitely gonna hit your, you know, your autarky. Now, it doesn't increase her RNG to be favorable, but you know, just in case you run out of skill points, it's good for QQ that you have Sparkle. It's better than Bronya, basically, because Sparkle is far more of a better comfort character than Bronya. The other big winners are Quantum DPS such as Sealy and Sway. For those two, they already have so much damage percentage already, so attack percentage is often more desired for them. It's a big benefit since Sparkle's Mono Quantum Trace grants that 45% attack, which is basically more than what Attack Boots provides, right? So for Sealy, right, compared to Sealy's canon love interest, which is Bronya, with Sparkle and Hanabi, you don't have to worry about skill points at all. Hell, there are even players that at E1 S1 Bronya that have E1 S1 Bronya, they still struggle with SP management with Sealy. So Sparkle, ideally, and I predict that you will never encounter skill point issues no matter what. So it's a big boost for Sealy, and especially a big boost for her since you can run a crit rate chess piece so that your Sealy can reach 100 crit rate threshold that she really wants, that because you know 95% crit rate is still a 50-50. So for Sway, she also has too much damage boost and lacks attack percentage. She's basically similar to Sealy, wherein you know they do have some gaps that Sparkle fixes quite a lot, right? You know, crit rate chess piece since Sparkle provides like nearly 100 crit damage value, so there's that to consider. Now, there are of course other big winners from Sparkle such as Jingwon. Since Jingwon finally gets its own E6 Bronya, it affects its LL. It can make Jingwon act 3 turns in a single cycle. Attack percentage, damage percentage, and crit damage percentage is basically what I mentioned before. It's good for Jingwon. It's basically a better before dawn, right? Some calcs even say that Sparkle is better than Ruin Mei for Jingwon, so there is that to consider. Of course, I assume that for every other crit scaling DPS, they will want Sparkle far more than Bronya just for the sake of comfort, the allowance of running crit rate chest piece, and to use attack percentage boosts such as Doctor Ratio, Herta, Himiko, Topaz, Argenti, and others. I can probably only think of 2 units that don't really prefer Sparkle. I mean, they'll still benefit from Sparkle, but I believe that they will benefit much more from Bronya, right? And these units would be both Blade and Jingliu. Both of them don't really use too much SP, and they desire damage percentage far more than crit damage. Especially Jingliu, right? Since she should naturally have higher crit damage percentage due to having already high crit rate. So when it comes to unit synergies outside of DPS units, Sparkle can enable Harmony units and tank killer units to spam their skill to get more energy, such as Tingyu and Wowo, and you can even include in a Japar to just freeze them, right? So that's basically Sparkle, one of the most insane units that is brought into this game, and she will really warp the meta. Maybe not warp the meta as much as Ruan May, but definitely warp the meta better than Bronya. So moving on will be Sparkle's banner on whether you should pull for her banner or not. So she has a pretty insane banner for the free to play. They put QQ in there so you can get an E4 QQ, get her Eidolons. I'm pretty sure that once Sparkle releases and you get her, you don't really need an E6 QQ since, since Sparkle does give a lot of SP. Maybe it's good for, comfort. Extra skill point is always nice, but I'm pretty confident that if you have a QQ E4 and you have Sparkle, you don't have to worry about, that extra skill point from QQ's E6. So there's that. We got Hanya, as I mentioned before. I consider this to be an L. Personally, for me, I bench her, right? She's kind of and it's decent, I guess, at E4, but that's about it. They really just decided to put another Harmony unit that functions like Sparkle, but worse in this banner. I guess it's only good for, I guess, in the context of free to play, since one side can have Hanya, and the other side can have Sparkle. But I wouldn't recommend building her because I believe that she's even worse than Yukong, right? Because at least Yukong feels in a niche. Hanya doesn't feel in a certain niche that I can know of, except like, I guess her only thing is that she has a unique skill, which is a damaging skill, but that's about it. Sampo you can get as E6. Sampo's still good, by the way, since he synergizes well with both Black Swan and Kafka, and if you're really planning for DOT, it's good for you. If you're not using DOT, then I guess you can just level him up for like, the 3 standard warp banners. So that's it. So if you truly are free to play, you should be pulling for Sparkle, really insane for your account and your account's future outlook. Let me prophesize right now and predict that, if you really desire future DPS units in the future, I'm pretty confident that this DPS units, they would want Sparkle far more than Bronya because, Hoyoverse has to sell their units. And moreover, they can just make, really, really unique DPS such as, out of turn DPS like Topaz and Jingyu 1, or maybe they really desire more skill points. Or maybe there could be tank units, healer units that really just wants to spam their skill. So Sparkle is always really preferable more than Bronya, right? Like I still stand by this point. An E0 S0 Sparkle would be better than even, let's say, an E6 Bronya. That's my justification, right? Now, the only reason that I could think of not to pull for Sparkle is because of Acheron coming right after her banner. Let's just say that, Acheron's a hyper carry unit that works well with 2 Nihility units. Acheron is going to be really insane for a free-to-play account, precisely because of her kit, right? There are 2 sides in MOC. Your Acheron team can have the 2 Nihilities, whereas the other team has all the available Harmony units options available. So Acheron does open up for your other DPS units to have Harmony units available, which is insane. You don't have to think about team building that much, and if you have Jingliu and Bronya, there's, I guess, less emphasis to pull on Sparkle for your account because, basically not just Jingliu, but every other DPS can just brute force it. Maybe except Herta. But Herta needs like ice weakness. But like every other unit I know of, they can just brute force, like even the 4 stars, right? They can brute force MOCs. So that's my thoughts on whether you should pull for Sparkle or not. If you just want to be stuck with Jingliu and Bronya, then be my guest. But all I'm saying right is that future DPS units may work for more well with Sparkle than Bronya. So moving on are the reasons why Sparkle is better than Bronya. Let's just say that some calcs or some people mentioned that if you were to put like Bronya's buffs all in a sheet and compare it to Sparkle's buffs all on a sheet, Bronya's would be better, but there's a big difference. Is that Sparkle's buffs, her biggest buff is on a 100% uptime, like her crit damage scaling buff. So whereas compared to Bronya's, it's tied to her ultimate, the attack percentage buff, the crit damage buff that Bronya provides. It's tied to her ultimate. The only good one will be her skill, right? So and for Sparkle, right, you can easily achieve her her like ult in like the first cycle. So there's that to consider, right? So you can Sparkle will achieve more of her buff uptime, like at least 100% far more than what Bronya can provide. Number two reason is that her SP positive nature allows you to use your support skill more often to get their ults, and you never know. You never know, they can make a harmony unit that functions like Daniel Ill that uses more SP to buff allies far harder like Octopath Traveler style. And Hoyoverse can possibly release, as I mentioned multiple times before, tank or healer units or even harmony units that are far more offensive, that have hard buffing skills, or even really offensive skills that you really want to use, right? So basically, Sparkle is far more universal. Now moving on to my third reason. For my third reason, right, she's similar to Ruan Mei in how you look at your relic pieces, right? It allows with Sparkle, right? You can now run your crit rate chest piece and your attack percentage boots because you don't have to worry about crit damage or even speed. Well, maybe you can worry about crit damage, right? Maybe let's say you have around already a good crit rate of 80 and then you have a crit damage of like, I don't know, like 190. Sparkle's just gonna increase that in even more to like around, let's say, like plus 90 bare minimum, and now you're looking at like what 80% crit rate and 280 crit damage DPS, right? But for the unfortunate folks like me, right, that don't really achieve that insane, crit damage, crit rate value. Let's say like bare minimum you have like mid one, like 70, 140. You can really opt for crit rate chest piece and get higher crit damage, so you can easily achieve like what, let's say, from 70 crit rate you turn it into like 90, and then that crit damage of 140 you can reach like 200 crit damage, or at least 190 crit damage bare minimum easily, right? So that's all I have to say. So her relic options are really, I mean, the way you build your DPS can be seen differently once you include Sparkle, right? So that's all I have to say for this video. Make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe my content for some more. You can leave comments whether you pull for Sparkle or not, save for Acheron, Aventurine, or even future units. I know I am going to pull for Sparkle, and hopefully I win the 50-50 as I usually do. And if I don't, well, that's sad. So I really hope this unit comes soon. I can't wait to show you some showcases with her. And that's it for this video, right? So see you in the next one. Peace.